episode is sponsored by Raise Tech, end-to-end IT solutions for your business growth.
The problem is I cannot stop learning somehow. I read things and then I have insights and then I know, oh yeah, what I have been thinking and believing yesterday might not be really true. It's convenient, it worked for the moment, and then you cannot unlearn actually some things. And then you think like, oh, well, maybe I should not mention this and that anymore. I will just go for the first thing, yeah? And then maybe you can just jump in and pick something and I move out of the discussion and you can jump on any of these topics or on different ones. But what I see is that actually the Agile community learns a lot, we develop a lot of knowledge, but actually we still teach the things we believed in 10 or 20 years ago. And they sell very well because like everyone who doesn't know about it and that didn't have like the kind of learning journey we had is amazed by all that. And sometimes I feel a little guilty. And of course, sometimes I also might not be right. Yeah. And when it comes to values, so my belief from today is that actually only a living brain can have values. And that we do not, that actually that only individual values exist. And that, for example, we are not aware of our values. And only if our values are violated, then their kind of feeling comes up and then we know, okay, there is something. So, and that means like today, if someone talks about Scrum values or Agile values or company values or whatever, I go like that. That's bullshit. A company cannot have values. Agile cannot have values. It's like you claim it would be nice to have this. It would be nice to believe in this. And actually you put it to paper always if you are not like this. To prove to others like it has big letters, we somehow like it. We don't do it, but we like it, or we should like it, or something like that. So that is the thing about values. So I'm not very convinced that like that kind of Scrum values are helpful. I'm not quite sure if it is like helpful to consider anything in the Agile Manifesto for software development a value or whatever. It's a different wording. We value this more than that, but that doesn't mean that it is a value. Right? So my belief at the moment is only individual values exist and all the rest talking about values is bullshit.
Can I counter that?
Yeah, please, come here. Whenever you want to say something, and this is like about a fishbowl, we always like try to keep one seat free. Yeah?
Yep.
So
Grab this one.
no, it's okay. You can come here. You can come here, but that means I'm gonna leave. And that's totally fine. You take that. I'm gonna go out. And whenever someone else steps in on that seat, then one has to leave here. That's all.
I feel that any kind of static value system is a wrong thing, right? So if you say there are Scrum values or Agile values and it's just a fixed set, it's a temporary thing where people come together and share a certain belief system and certain value system. So to work together, to do meaningful work together, we need to agree on something, right? And it's good to say we come from the same problem space and we have these values that we agree upon for a while, but this is an evolutionary thing. So the world gets more complex, the world evolves, and our understanding of systems evolves, so our values need to adapt. And that means value systems can diverge, new values can come in, old can go out, and so on. So I would kind of agree with Alex saying Agile cannot have values, humans have values, but we can try to formulate a common set of values that we agree upon for a given amount of time. What I find very dangerous is the fact that everything is like in a bell curve, right? You have people that come up with new values or that formulate new values because they sit in a new problem space. And then once it gets to the lazy majority, people like, oh, we can make money with this. Like old business says, let's adopt these values. They seem to be successful. And then it becomes very toxic because now people cling on to them as a thing to advertise. And values are not for advertisement. Values are for, well, guiding your principles, guiding your work, basically. So that was my point, I guess.
Actually, I pretty much second to what you're saying. I have my personal one. Pretty much what you're saying about. I sort of don't agree with Alexis stating that values is only personal. I believe it could be wider. But I agree that they should be more fluid. I mean, they should be more changing, and we shouldn't, fix on something for a number of years just because now we believe that, the clever guys that they were back in the days on the Agile, who wrote the Agile Manifesto, I think they did it with the best sort of knowledge of what was good at that time and what the value should be at that time. However, that might change, right? I think that I also don't agree, for example, that company values can't exist. I believe they can, and that could be something that shapes the behavior of the employees. And I've seen some good examples of that happening, even though it's not an often to happen thing. So it could be there. It just needs to be used right. It needs to be formulated by the ones that are using it, and it needs to be constantly sort of reviewed. So that's at least my take if we talk values, the first line here.
Yep. I guess I'll jump in with like modern agile values, right? So the thing is that sometimes we make things a bit too fancy. And if you think about modern agile values, these are the things you need to fucking know, right? This is how a successful business could be built. You experiment rapidly, you deliver value continuously, you make people awesome, and then you make safety prerequisite. I have friends who have built successful businesses, e-commerce, insurance, whatever. None of these have agile coaches. None of these have scrum masters. None of these people have heard about agile values or modern agile values. But if I showed that these values to them, they'll be, yep, we're doing this, we're doing this, we're doing this, we're doing this. So quite often, all these values are basically just stealing what successful companies are doing and putting it into the word. So I see values as a form of communication for people to say, oh, you should think about this, you should think about that. And whether you use that or not, it's your personal choice and it's your choice as a company. So values are just a tool to communicate the message, as simple as that. That's how I feel it.
All right, I don't want to get stuck on the values thing, but I have a comment on everything that I see here. The older I get, the more I think, oh, there we go again. I started my first book with the quote, all models are wrong, some are useful, George Box. And I have learned over time that there are two things that are important. Models, our ways of seeing the world, are accurate or not. Some things are more accurate than others, like Einstein's physical laws are more accurate than Newtonian laws, but even Einstein's laws were not accurate enough because there's always better laws that describe things better. That is different from how useful things are, because Newtonian laws are very often more useful than the Einsteinian ways of describing physics. And it's the same with everything here. Yes, we can have an argument how accurate things are compared to how the real world is, and then people have arguments with those who are actually considered the usefulness of something. So for example, we know that MBTI is total crap scientifically, but it can be useful for people to discuss their different personalities and discuss diversity, even though there's no scientific behavior or scientific foundation underneath it. So we have to distinguish what is accurate, that's an interesting discussion, versus what is useful for us. And sometimes discussing values, yeah, that can be useful for people, even though, yeah, it is total nonsense.
It's like religion, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It might be nonsense,
But sometimes it's useful. Yeah, exactly. So accurate versus nonsense. That's my yeah.
I like Paulius' example that people build successful businesses even if they don't know about agile and values or anything. When I heard this topic, it's something like start triggering me. So let's say anything like openness. For me, openness is very important. Even before I come to Agile, I kind of need to speak up when I want. I expect everyone to speak up with me. But when I moved to Germany, I understand openness on a completely different level. For some people, it could be even rude, it could be unacceptable. So it's same word could be completely different for 2, 3, for room of the 10 people. Every single people could have different perception what it openness means. So I think that values as defined as maybe some of the frameworks could be useful, but if you just take it and try to apply to any group of the people, is it a pair or a team or a whole organization, doesn't make sense until we have this dialogue, like what does openness means for me, for you, for anyone else.
Yeah. And I have like the question, I don't think values can be applied or whatever, yeah, to anyone. Because like, well, in my definition, values are not negotiable. And that means you cannot agree on values because you cannot negotiate. Like, what are the right values here for the group, for the room or whatever? I don't think that's possible. And on the other hand, when observing organizations, what kind of values I would like claim them to have, it's maybe mostly things like mistrust and greed. Yeah, and it's not like openness and whatever respect. Yeah, look at the gender pay gap in Germany, for example. There is no respect towards women. Yeah, so these are like some of the things. Yeah, just a thought in between. You go for it, and you are welcome to switch the topic anytime you want. And also, if any one of you like wants to jump in on one of the other topics, you just do it.
I want to bring in another aspect which wasn't expressed too clear to me so far, and that's the aspect of who is looking at the values. So I am in my bubble, in my world. Everybody has his own world. Now, what happens with those values or any other terms you have defined here, or not defined, just thrown into the room? I define them for myself, biased by my bubble. And what I do is, if I hear for instance, organizations have values, I interpret this as there is an alignment amongst the employees of that organization which have some common values together. They are aligned, right? And that's exactly what it means to me then.
Are they aligned or are they told?
That's another question, but that's my interpretation of, and that would be a succeeding question which can follow up exactly to go deeper into that. Or for instance, the Agile Manifesto values is a mean where I can reflect my inner world with some outside triggers. These 4 values are triggering, and I can feel what am I aligned to, and what am I declining automatically, intuitively, or whatever. And that brings me to the next step, which is authenticity in the meaning of that everything I do is congruent to what I think, is congruent to what I speak, is congruent to what I feel, is congruent to my attitude. These 5 levels of authenticity, if they are broken, it can break at any one of those terms. So what I try to is to let them flow in and try to interpret it in such a way that I can confirm my bubble in the first place. Or if I don't manage to get them integrated nicely, then I need to extend my bubble and learn from it, right? So that's my vision on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I would like to make a meta comment of this because it sounds like a philosophical debate, which I really like. And for me, it's like a sign of maturity of the community of Agile people that they come and try to reflect the things that they use on daily basis, like values, principles, and models that they use in explaining such a movement of Agile. And this is very happy. Well, I think it's a positive sign because by reflection and discussing this in this group, we can actually be more mature and self-aware what we are doing.
Because when we touch the values, it's the huge field of axiology in philosophy, which capture a lot of ideas, what the people think about values, what they mean by values, how it's contextual, how it's not contextual, how it's declarative, how it's not declarative, tons of knowledge that it's not in our bubble. And it's okay it's not our bubble, because our bubble cannot be everything. Any of these elements here, what I personally see is our reference that we come as a community, because when we talk about agile, whatever it is, we tend to refer to these elements there. And it's good that we put them under the examination, because probably most of us have like more or less similar or different definition of that. And this is very good, and I'm happy that it's happening. So with that comment, I'm just giving my thought to Simas.
Yeah, thank you so much. For the last minutes, I've noticed that we were mostly speaking about values, and just a thought that came to my mind. Companies are seeking to create these values for the company. Like, what are our 5 values that we want to have embraced and believe that all employees should follow us and do the same? And then I'm comparing and thinking, well, we are talking about the smaller group of people, be it a team, be it a team of leaders. It's okay for them to define what's important for them, how they would like to work, what they enjoy together, what they don't enjoy and wouldn't like to see. But once there are values defined for the company, and as it was discussed, maybe that it's used for alignment or something, I don't see it working. Sorry, but maybe I'm too skeptical on this. But it's more like it's someone's ideas how people should behave, what people should value. But how do we know if that the new joiner values these things? We say that you must to, or we expect from the people. Yeah, maybe it's if it's regarding expectation, then it's different thing. But I believe having values defined as for the company and for the bigger group, it's really challenging, and I'm not sure if it's serving the purpose, the intention was to create these.
Yeah.
But that's my thought.
Yeah, very interesting. Yeah, especially with newcomers. If you expect them like to adapt to your values, maybe one of your values is to find employees that are lying. Yeah. So they're just saying, yeah, I will. I would. Oh, you want to say something about values? Because I just wanted to jump in the topics.
Well, very briefly.
Yeah, go for it.
So when I hear the word values, my mind checks out because of all the things everyone's already said. And I think what we really want, and what leaders and people who are organizing groups of people, what they really are looking at is behavior. We want to be able to behave in a certain way that we think is acceptable in this group. And so we need to put up some boundaries, some ways to make it understandable so that we know what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. And somewhere along the line, it's become values. Like, you have to value this because this is what we value in a behavior. But in reality, it's really about how do we want to see people behave? What's okay and what's not okay?
Yeah.
It's totally simplifying it, but
no, but that's, yeah, and now it's wonderful. Like, that's the bridge, like maybe to agile leaders, better leaders, or whatever, how to make people behave differently. Yeah. So let's jump on that one.
Institute some values.
Yeah,
Oh, wait,
no, it's
no.
like, because like agile leadership is a huge market, isn't it? Like, and everyone thinks like of leadership being an action, of people practicing leadership somehow. Yeah. And the question is that what people are led by? I'm not quite sure. Let me give you like one of the maybe provocative thoughts or whatever on leaders. So when looking at leaders, for me, a leader or leaders is a concept that is based on centralized authority. So we have people with centralized authority for decisions and for like commanding and controlling others. And now the question is, can agile leaders or better leaders solve the problems that the concept of leaders create?
People who can influence on other people.
Yeah, but like influence, is it helpful or not? Yeah. Because like, I mean, can better or agile leaders solve the problem they cause?
So yeah, I think that's a really good question, and just understanding how we're using the word, because I mean, part of what I do is leadership development. I mean, in terms of how do you describe supporting people?
You're talking about humans.
Yes, I am. Actual humans, not robots. Developing humans in how to listen better, how to motivate others that have isn't about
You
fear
think people
based.
can be motivated?
I do.
Ooh,
I do.
great. I think people are motivated and we can just destroy motivation. That's great. Difference.
I think we can also uncover motivation with appreciation.
I think that's manipulation.
That's a
That's total bullshit.
Yeah, great. Go for
All
it.
right, God, I can't stand the comments. You cannot really motivate people. You can only demotivate them. Bullshit. You can make people laugh.
Yeah.
You can also make them motivated. Yes, that is enabling the things that increase the chance that they will laugh or that they are happy or that they are motivated. So no, I cannot make people smile by pulling the corners of their mouth, but I can make a joke. And then that might have a chance of making them smile and laugh. So it's exactly the same with motivation. Yes, there are plenty of things that we can do to motivate people. That's how we use language. We say we motivate people, but what we do is we create the enabling constraints that increase the chance that they will feel motivated themselves. My final observation, I think the list of 10 words that you wrote here, Alex, are bullshit. Because they're all 10 very interesting things, but you primed us with values, and then we got stuck for 25 minutes on the values thing, which was apparently in itself a very interesting topic. I think we are too kind in the Agile community sometimes. We let things flow and we don't break in when it is needed, and someone could have said after 10 minutes, all right, stop it about values. There's other good stuff on this list. I think the fishbowl session itself is far too gentle. We should be able to pull people out. So, okay, you've been sitting there for long enough. Me in that chair, you move. But we don't do that because we're so kind all the time to each other. And that's values. We get back to values perhaps, but just my observation. I'm committed to be a little bit of the annoying old guy today, making observations and then let other people draw their own conclusions. So, well, that was it. Thank you.
Yeah, well,
What else to say? Please.
when I jumped in, there was a notion of leadership discussed. That's where sort of something triggered me when I believe you, Alex, sort of presented that a leader is someone with authority, which I not necessarily agree with. I think that if we talk about empower teams and all this concept, the leaders make basically no decisions there. They are the ones to make sure the team has the right tools and skills and opportunities to make their decisions on their own. So sort of they're the ones that should enable the teams, and that's what leadership is for me. It's actually both be by doing good motivating stuff, maybe sometimes cutting people off and saying that they're doing bullshit and this or there, and pushing them to change towards some direction. But at the end of the day, they shouldn't be the ones that are the only ones with authority. If team is responsible for something, they need to make their decisions. It's not there's some sort of a person with more stars on the shoulder that should do that. That's my take on it.
Yeah. So yeah, okay. That leads a little bit to like, why should we have like leaders, or why are people needed like that? Why can't people do it themselves? Why do we degrade maybe people to children so that we do not expect them to do that themselves, to need a leader or something like that? So these are like some thoughts, and I believe there are lots of things that people can be led by, and it doesn't have to be other humans. If you want to lead something, then you can get a dog or whatever, yeah, but not employees. So a team does not need a leader to be led. Maybe a team needs transparency and information and access to the market and to the customer or whatever to understand. And mostly I see leaders standing in the way, even if they try to become better leaders.
Thank you. So I am a little bit more than a decade in the industry, and I must say that I don't know what is Agile leader. This Agile sounds like a bullshit film to me. I think that everyone is a leader, and that there are different stances that we can take in different situations. Sometimes this leader being in front and pulling the group towards somewhere. Sometimes this leader standing next to each other and supporting each other. Sometimes leader being in the back and pushing when need to be pushed or pulling when need to be pulled. So there is like a different situation and occasion when we could be leaders or not. What's actually more important here is what are we trying to talk about? So are we trying to teach each other how to be better leaders, how to recognize? Because if we recognize what are we as individuals, then we could consciously choose how we want to lead the group. Sometimes it's about letting someone who is your peer to go forward and empowering that person. Sometimes we have our official functions that are putting the leadership in our titles and that are telling us that we need to be that person who will go in front and tell someone what to do. This is another burden of team dynamics and how things are working in a group. But the most important thing is that we are aware what we are, what's our role, and what we want, and then consciously to choose our behavior.
When you touch the leader, there's a big list called management bullshit. It's even bigger. And one of the bullshit is the leadership, because there's quite precise distinguish between leadership as a process and leader as a person. And guys, it's also changing with the time that we have. There was the times that we need the great people to move us forward. And there's also observation that in the complex environment with technology, that the people need a different approach from the people who are formal leaders, because usually in organization, mostly in the system, there's someone formal with the leadership. We can deny that as a fact or try to make the agile organization. Good luck with that. Happy to hear it. But it's like we need the leaders. How they become leaders, how we can support as agile practitioners, the leaders. It's an interesting practice with a lot of shamanism, bullshits, and lack of evidence. And it's good that we touch this topic.
May I? I don't know if this works. I have not the. I don't think so.
It's just impression.
It works. Okay. Now it just because all these buzzwords that we have here, that for years now, I'm not only myself, but within my team and other people, I try to make sense out of it. Okay, and when I'm thinking, because it's vanishing, in fact, it's really vanishing. And when I'm thinking about, and I'm quite, well, this is my opinion, that we are all entrepreneurs. In fact, that, in ancient times, we went on our fields, we harvested our stuff, we were autonomous, and there, you know what I mean? So going into big factories and big things, I think it's not our nature. So, and there are a lot of people in big organizations like that. So how do you get them, I would not say motivated, but mobilized? Okay, and that for something greater. And sometimes a good old leader, as we know, a patriarchal person, can do a lot, and you can feel it when you go through a door. If a company is in a successful mood or not, and I can really feel it, and it's rare. It's getting more and more rare. So this is, for me, it's vanishing. All these things. I will. So okay, this was just a thought about being entrepreneurial, and maybe it's counter nature, what we're doing since years now.
I fully agree with that as well, and as you as well, and with the others as well. Just to give an insight into my bubble, how I cope with it, leadership has two facets for me. The first one is self-leadership, being aware of myself as a role model for my environment. That's self-leadership. So I'm going with an example. What I do is what gets copied, usually. People are checking whether they want to copy what I do.
Because you learn,
Exactly.
and you
That's
make
how we
up
learn.
your opinion.
That's how we
by
learn,
yourself.
exactly. Copy machines, right? Like child copy their parents and stuff like that. So that's the sense. That's the non-bullshit part of it for me. The bullshit part for me is the other facet of leadership. That is where someone takes leadership over others. I think we cannot take, or we shouldn't take, that's not healthy, to take leadership over others. But it is still senseful. Senseful in the terms of you have power and you get more money. That's meaningful, right? You want to earn more money, get a leader, become a leader. Although the concept of leadership, for me, in that case, in that facet, is total bullshit, because it's hollow. They take responsibility for stuff they cannot take responsibility, because everyone takes responsibility for their own actions, for their own words, for their own thoughts, for their own feelings, for their attitude. And that's the bullshit behind it. So that's where I think the concept is obviously broken with that facet of leadership, which comes basically from Taylorism, and we are still adopting it like crazy, with the meaning and the purpose of reallocating money and power.
I will do what Jürgen a couple of minutes proposed to do. I will switch the topic completely because I feel we're very much stuck on leadership in the last 10 minutes or so. But one of the things that that is on the list here is actually that maybe I will raise as a question, and it's interesting to hear an opinion of people around here. Is Agile itself a bullshit? It's just this something that we created that this is a concept that will come up and solve your pains in this area, will make you more adaptive and yada yada yada, all of those fancy words usually coaches and consultants use to sell their services basically. So if we will not sort of formulate something as an explanation, as a definition of what the Agile is, wouldn't this change still happen? The change, I mean, the company is moving towards, becoming more flexible, faster decisions, adapting to market, and all of those things. If Agile as a concept wouldn't exist, would companies still become, all of those things? Or is just because Agile was at some point defined that companies now do it?
I think it's a very nice question. Thank you so much for that, because that's the essence of what we do, right? We are basically working in a bullshit field. No, it's a little provocative, because I'm convinced that these things existed before. Now it has been wrapped up and compressed into a keyword, and that keyword sells. And that brings me to the next topic. Do we really need to grow all the time and sell more and more? Why are we not happy with what we have? And do we need Agile as a selling point? Because anyone in this world was Agile before that keyword was used in the meaning we use it now, right?
Yeah, but that was before the industrial age, and something changed. Yeah, the big thing actually is we cannot afford doing business the old way anymore. We are wasting too much. We have hit actually our planetary limits. And that means we have been, of course, living humans have always been agile. And we had also agile patterns of working in the past. Actually, this is just returning to old habits. It's returning to using brains again. It is returning to not wasting too much. We just had this phase of industrialization where we could like use all the powers of fossil fuels to move like much more than we needed and create a financial sector that needs eternal growth to survive. Yeah, and now actually we are still running that system, but we see we are hitting our limits. And if we want to somehow survive, we cannot afford that kind of waste anymore. And this is actually where Agile jumps in, I think, in my impression, to say like we need to bring doing and thinking together again. We need to make use of all the wonderful brains that we have in the companies. We cannot like just forget about all the ideas of all these cool people. Everyone we have in the company is an expert for him or herself and for the work they are doing. So why command and control them and make them things do that single brains think might be the right thing? Management itself is a limiting factor. It makes us too slow and it is just too expensive. If you take a look at larger companies, like the cost of a CEO, you can run a small city on the cost of one CEO. Yeah, and these are the things that we might not be able to afford in the future. And this is why I believe that Agile is somehow attractive, because less people could use their brains more to create more of value and are not limited anymore by command and control patterns. That's a little bit like my thought. And I might be totally wrong with that.
I want to build on top of this what you mentioned. I immediately when you said about being more effective, don't waste and things like that, like in my head start one big like bullshit note like Agile it's only about delivery. Agile it's only about delivering projects in more innovative Agile ways.
That's a very old view on Agile.
If we are delivering bullshit, we will deliver bullshit in a more innovative way. We can reduce waste, but at the end it will be bullshit.
Yeah, it's a shit in, shit out, and with Agile maybe faster the shit in and the shit out.
Exactly. So if you are talking about bullshit, like why Agile is not focusing on what? Why Agile is mostly on how can we do it? How can we faster? How can we deliver it? How can we be a happy group of doing that quicker? Why Agile is not touching the whole process of having an idea, discovering what you want to do, and then when you have what, then going to how. So the whole point of being more effective using the buzzwords Agile, it's like triggering me a lot when it's not everything about that. It's not like one silver bullet which will make you succeed in the end of your journey. Like you need to be good in everything. And it's everything, it's not Agile. Agile is just like second half or maybe even smaller part of the journey. So if you want to succeed, you need to have a holistic picture and to do much better other things as well.
And the question is, was it success? Is success defined the way it has been like in the last century, or is actually success in the future something totally different?
And when I'm here, okay, when I'm hearing both of you, and I'm like my romantic heart is warming. I would like to see this agile revolution about humanized workspace, using human potential. But with this beautiful story, I'm capturing myself, are we going too far with Agile? I'm wondering if the guys who meet there with some methods how to produce the software in more meaningful way, in more anarchistic way in the corporation, they will think about what we are discussing right now. It was the inspiration of that. Are we evolving as an Agile community to trying to change the world? Or are we just practicing how to make things efficient and humanized because people are important part of this, what we are doing, and how to make it efficient, not bureaucratic way, in the way that if the world is changing, can we adapt whatever we are doing? And this is the line that what I'm thinking, yes, it's like when you look in the economy, the paradigms of the how to lead the people is varying. It's like it's old stuff. And by the way, the successful of Taylorism were quite nice because they also try to manage the people in that time, how to make efficiently with the shovel, for example, when previously it was like smacking you by the whip. So it's not that we are fighting with Taylorism, we are fighting with the bullshit and not humane way treating the people. And this is also important thing too. That's why my heart is warming when I'm hearing this.
Yeah, I believe like agility has lots of aspects of democracy. It is somehow like creating with each other and for each other. And that means to become like true agile, we have to overcome like some old systemic patterns. Yeah. And it's that's very hard because we're all in an environment where it makes sense like to behave like an asshole.